Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums, and today I have another tarot spread or card spread video for you guys to kind of incorporate this into your practice. This is a fun one and I'm only saying that because I feel like tarot can be a beautiful tool for self-reflection, for growth, for personal discovery and things of that nature. So I like to use tarot as a tool in my practice to kind of help me dive a little bit deeper into my own personal story, maybe even some of my own personal blind spots and things of that nature. So today is the Imposter Syndrome Spread, which I think a lot of us can relate to. I'm going to be using the Learning Tarot deck, as it does make it a little bit easier, especially if you're someone who's a little bit newer to tarot, to kind of have an understanding of some key words and also some phrases that can kind of help you dive a little bit deeper in your practice. So I'm sure the cards will call me out. They always do. So let's get into it. This is going to be a 6-card spread. So, already we got one trying to pop out. So we're just going to put her back in there. Oh my God. All right. So let's start with card number 1. This is going to be the card to represent my energy. So here we have the Death card reversed. And then card number 2 is going to be, why do I feel like an imposter? We have the Page of Wands reversed. And then card number 3 is going to be, why am I not an imposter? I like this one. We have Justice. Hopefully we'll get everything to fit. All right, so card number 4 is, how do people around me view my skills? We have the Lovers. I'm going to try to move these up so you guys can see everything. Card number 5 is, what will shining bright despite my fears help me grow? And this is going to be the Hanged Man. I'm getting a lot of majors. That's rude today. And words of love from my ancestors about me. So let's see. I have the Magician reversed. All right, so how would I read this spread? Because, I mean, it's one thing to just pull the cards, right? So let's do a sample reading, so to speak. And I'm assuming that this is going to be about me because this deck always loves tattling on me when I do these little sample readings for you guys. So again, this is the Imposter Syndrome Spread. I don't know if I mentioned, I found this on Moon Mama Oracle, possibly on Instagram many moons ago. So let's get into it. So card number 1, this is going to be the card to represent my energy. So we have the Death card reverse. So there is, like this says here, an inability to move forward, fear of beginnings, repeating negative patterns, resisting change, and dependency. So obviously not the nicest kind of personal reflection, I guess, but as someone who is pretty self-aware and has done a lot of shadow work and therapy, I do recognize these things within myself. I am someone who can be a little bit stubborn, a little bit more of a person that will go through what is tried and true versus trying something new. So I feel like this is kind of saying like, hey, as much as you may want to kind of release and surrender in some ways, you're still staying and remaining stagnant in certain patterns or certain things because that may be a little bit more comfortable for you. Or it's kind of having this understanding that at least I know what the trouble is where I'm at now versus what will I have to deal with if I do something else. So I think this is very apt in a lot of ways, even if it's not the nicest thing. So it's kind of saying like, hey, I have to be willing to let go of the past version of myself in order for me to move forward. And so maybe a lot of this is why I feel like a little bit of an imposter a lot of the time, is because I know what I've done, I know what I've experienced, I know what I've gone through, and I see how challenging it's been. So it can be a little bit hard to kind of move into this like, oh, I'm like, you know, here for the new beginnings. I'm letting go. I'm like okay with endings and things like that. And I'm not. I'm going to be real with you guys. I'm not. I don't do very well with a lot of change. I can be very rigid. I can be very of one mind when it comes to things that like I know from my personal experience is something that has been tried and true, so to speak. So I think that does describe me in a lot of ways. It's not flattering, and that's okay. Tarot sometimes is not very flattering. No matter how much we want to try to move into different archetypes that maybe feel more like how we want to be. And sometimes tarot just tells you how it is. All right, so card number 2 is, why do I feel like an imposter? So here we have the Page of Wands reverse. So there's a lack of energy, there's discouragement, there's obstacles, someone who breaks your heart, very insensitive kind of energy. So I think that this may have something to do more with like my other business, the other work that I'm doing. It is something that is very physically taxing in some ways. And so I will say that because I was extremely busy this summer, I am still kind of recuperating some of my energy. I have dealt with, I hired somebody to help and then had to release them. So that was also very challenging because it was something that was, to me, very emotionally taxing. And so I think that this is kind of saying like I feel like an imposter because maybe, you know, I had wanted to see something grow, and unfortunately the way that maybe I had perceived the help that I was receiving really wasn't in alignment with my long-term goals, if that makes sense. So I think that maybe I feel like an imposter because I don't have the energy, I don't have a lot of like a sense of where this will lead or what this will look like. So I think that is, again, very much in alignment with what I have going on currently in my life. All right, so card number 3 is going to be, why am I not an imposter? So here we have Justice, which is all about you know, I get what I give sort of energy, which I think is very much something that is very true to my core belief of how business should work and how I show up in the world. It is a card of like contracts, agreements, settlements, apologies, decisions that are needed, law and order. As someone who is very much, again, kind of rigid, I can be very like, it has to be this way. I can be flexible in certain situations, but I know with my other business, I can be a little bit more of like, I'm doing these things and I want to make sure that it's always at this same level, that my clientele can come to expect the same level of performance, no matter if I am lacking energy or feeling off or having a bad day or whatever, things like that. I mean, I am human, so it's not always going to be 1000% perfect, but I do try my best in a lot of ways. So I think that this is kind of like reminding me of like, no matter what, I still maintain that balance. I still am someone that like will deal with whatever consequences that I meet, depending on what I'm doing. But again, it's very much about getting what I give. So I am over here, you know, putting out the effort necessary in order for me to receive when I need to be supported, if that makes sense. So card number 4 is, how do people around me view my skills? So the Lovers. So this is very much, so essentially it's almost like, to me, when I think of the Lovers, it's very much about aligning yourself with a life that you really love. And so it is very much about, you know, being put to the test, but also having really good relationships and partnerships, shared values, having these connections. I know that this can be seen as more of like a romantic card. I don't always look at the Lovers that way. And this is also one of my birth cards. So to me, it's not always like about like lovey-dovey coming together sort of energy. I think it is very much about choosing a life that I really love, making choices that are in alignment with the things that I love, if that makes sense, more so than talking about relationships and stuff like that. But I think that this is a good thing, because if other people view me as someone that, you know, my personal values are seen in the things that I offer and the work that I do, it allows other people to see, like, I'm choosing to do these things. So maybe then they will also choose to follow my example, or, you know, maybe find a way to kind of balance a little bit of this energy. So moving right along, and it's funny because it's like it has like this Mercury and Gemini sort of energy too, which I do like that these cards have the astrological influence here. We have a lot of heart chakra energy. So it is very much about me being very intentional about the work that I'm doing, that I have to, as someone who is a manifesting generator in human design, I have to really love what I'm doing. I also have my Venus and my moon in Cancer. I have to really love what it is that I'm doing. I have to be emotionally connected to it in some way, or else I will be very unhappy as a person. That's just me. A little additional kind of energy. But since we have Mercury and Gemini, I think in Vedic astrology, my Mercury is in Gemini. So it is very much this kind of energy of like, you know, having to speak my truth in a lot of ways and kind of choosing what it is that I want in a lot of different ways. So if we move along to card number 5, what will shining bright despite my fears help me grow? So here we have the Hanged Man reverse. It's interesting because this is talking about discontent, apathy, disinterest, stagnation, impulsiveness, negative patterns, and detachment. So since I know that this card talks about what will shining bright despite my fears help me grow, I think that this is pointing out my fears, right? And it's kind of saying like, this is what needs to grow, is this disinterest, this stagnation, my impulsiveness, the negative patterns, a sense of detachment. And so maybe it's kind of saying like, it's an opportunity for me to take a sacred pause and, you know, have some stillness so that I can really start to see things long term, because I will not lie on here, and I impulsively started a second business, and it has really been very successful right from like the moment I started it. And so I think I haven't really had a lot of forethought about what this will look like in the future, how long I'll be able to do this, like what this will look like for me long term. So I think that this is kind of talking about, you know, I need to work on my sense of like feeling a little bit stagnant, and maybe even like that sense of impulsiveness of sometimes I'll take on a little bit more than I can chew, I'll bite off a little bit more than I can chew, put more things on my plate that don't always align or make sense, and I'm having to be very intentional about where I'm spending my time and what I'm doing with my time. And so I think that's an interesting card to receive. And even if you're someone like me, I like to read reversals. I know some people don't. You can always flip the cards over, and I think that the message will still be very intentional in those ways. I can even do an example of what that would look like and see how much it changes the reading, so to speak. And again, each reading is going to be affected by our own personal experiences or perspectives, how we feel about these cards. I've learned over time to detach my own personal feelings about certain cards when I'm doing a reading, because I don't want that to be something that influences or affects my understanding of what the message is, if that makes sense. So finally, we have words of love from ancestors about me. We have the Magician reversed. So block creativity, not learning from past mistakes, feigned expertise, weakness, indecision, frustration, and delays. And this is kind of say, I have all the resources that I need, inner and outer. This is very very funny to me. I love the Magician. It's probably becoming one of like my favorite cards from the majors. I think that this is kind of saying like, hey, You need to have more time for fun, more time for creativity. I'm someone who's very, very creative, and I haven't had a lot of time for that. I love to paint, I love to craft, I love to do different things. Like, I've been currently in a creative state of like redecorating my home and my space and trying to make it look and feel more like in alignment with what I like now, because I feel like we are constantly changing, and I like to kind of add that zhuzh to my environment as well, to kind of feel a little bit more like, okay, this is like adding an extra sense of who I am now and today and what makes sense for me. So I think that this is kind of saying like, hey, you have not been in your creative energy. Maybe you haven't learned from past mistakes, where I can totally admit that. I went through a process of trying to add some help for several months, and I just kept trying and kept trying and kept trying, and it never ended up really working out long term. When I look back, and I had the intention of, I was just going to do this by myself. I really wasn't going to worry about, trying to add in other people, because I understand my flaws and I understand my shortfalls and my shortcomings, so to speak. So I know I'm not very good as a leader, so to speak, because I'm someone who's very empathetic and can be very averse to having a lot of confrontation. Again, what I do is not something, it can be very physically stressful. I don't want it to be emotionally and mentally taxing as well. So I don't want to kind of add in that extra stress. And when I was doing all this, like adding help, it was a lot of mental stress on top of the physical stress. So I think this is kind of saying like, hey, maybe the feigned expertise can be a reminder of like, I don't know everything. I don't know everything that's going on. And even with tarot, I can tell you guys all the time, if you watched other videos, do what makes you feel more connected. Don't do it the way I'm saying to do it. Yes, I do have like a whole Learn Tarot With Me series, but even throughout that whole series, I'm like constantly reminding you to follow through on what feels intuitively correct for you. Yes, it is a system. Yes, there is some rules in place, but again, I feel like a lot of rules are pretty much arbitrary. So it really is up to you to kind of say like, I'm going to believe in this or I'm not going to believe in this. So this can talk about indecision, frustration, delay. So I think that they're kind of telling me like, hey, stop feeling so frustrated. And the other thing I think here is like this like a key phrase where it's like, I have all the resources I need, inner and outer. I think that is such a beautiful reminder, because I do tend to forget that. I do tend to feel a lot of anxiety about particular aspects of my life, even though at this point in time there's nothing that is, kind of encouraging that narrative, if that makes sense. And so I think that this is kind of telling me like, hey girl, have more fun, like, learn from your past mistakes, stop neglecting like what you've learned so far. Let's move forward. Let's, not be so frustrated with things not being exactly how we thought they were going to be. Like, just have fun, because I haven't been having fun and I need to get back into it. And so I think one of the things I've added into my current schedule is to kind of like add a little bit more fun by, taking a break and not putting so much pressure on myself on certain tasks or certain elements of my life, and just try to enjoy things, because I'm like, the grind and like that anxiousness and that feeling of like, I gotta, and the list of things, like I'm the one putting that pressure on myself. It's not something where someone's like coming in and checking in after me and saying, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? So I think it's very much this energy of like, calm the hell down, girl. All right, so let's move some of these cards as upright and see if it changes what the reading would look like. I'll just do it really quick because I know this video is already getting a little bit long. And all right, so if we just change these cards to the upright position. So let's see. So if we have a card to represent my energy, we have the Death card, which is a card of new beginnings, letting go, endings, changes, transitions, sudden or unexpected upheaval, releasing, cleansing, purging, stripping away what is worthless. So as someone that really loves the energy of the Death card, I think it is kind of saying like, hey girl, like let's, we need to kind of be willing to let go of the past versions of ourselves. So I think the energy is still very similar, but it also isn't really like calling me out on some of the things that I know for a fact are a reason why things feel the way that they are in some ways in my life. And so I think that this is kind of telling you like, hey, we have to kind of strip away what doesn't really make sense. For card number 2, why do I feel like an imposter? We have the Page of Wands, which is a card of courage, optimism, competition, faithfulness. It's a very like energetic sort of card, a card of a lot of enthusiasm. And so maybe this is kind of saying like, I feel like an imposter because maybe I don't have a lot of that enthusiasm. Maybe I don't have like a lot of like this push. Like I said, I started this other project and business out of necessity more so than like oh my god, I'm so excited to do this. It was more of like feeling like it was one of the only options left for me, and it's been great. I'm not saying that starting something in that manner is not necessarily beneficial or can turn into something else, because it is something that I still truly love, but that wasn't why I had initially started things. And it started during Scorpio season, so there was a lot of energy going on. As a person with a lot of Taurus placements, it was a lot. So this one was upright, so we're not going to read that again. Card number 4. I'm like reading this number. Card number 4 is, okay, so this was why am I not an imposter? How do people around me view my skills? For card number 5, what will shining bright despite my fears help me grow? So here we have the Hanged Man upright, which is talking about feeling trapped, confined, self-limiting, uncertain, lack of direction, needing release, letting go, waiting, like there's some sort of sacrifice that needs to be made. So I see how this message kind of changes, because it's almost saying like there's something that needs to change. There's some perspective that needs to change. There's a sacrifice that needs to be made in some ways so that I can not feel so trapped, to kind of like not feel so confined in some ways. And I know some people look at the Hanged Man as a card of like lack of momentum because he is kind of hanging, and kind of see it as like, oh man, that's like really hard. But when I look at the Hanged Man, I don't see him struggling to release himself. It's more of an opportunity to kind of observe things from a different perspective. So that's just my own personal thing with the Hanged Man. And then with the words of love from ancestors about me. So this is about creativity, action, power, manifestation skills, willpower, and, really manifesting your desires. So I feel like the message is more of like an encouraging message, in the sense of it's kind of saying like, hey, are you, in alignment with the things that make you feel happy, and really connecting a little bit more to that energy, and really understanding like you have the skills, you have the work. It is a card of self-employment, so it is kind of saying like, hey, this is you kind of doing your own thing. So see how it kind of changes a little bit of the message in some ways that maybe don't allow as much self-reflection in certain ways. And this is why I say find a reading style and method that works for you. You can also do this with oracle cards, and kind of see how that lands for you. If you have some that are really good for whatever it is that you're working through, personal development, or just kind of like focusing on various lessons. So I hope that you enjoyed this imposter syndrome spread. I want to say thank you so much for joining me. Please take care, stay safe, and as always, make good choices. Bye.